Hey there, Silver Recaps here. Watch out. The story begins in the middle of a dense forest where a wooden house stands. In this house lives a woman named Moma with her two children, Nolan and Samuel. Whenever they step outside the house, they are tied to a rope, the other end of which is attached to the house. The world has changed completely. Many years ago, an entity attacked Earth and wiped out most of humanity. Now, only a few humans remain. Moma tells her children that the area around their home is surrounded by this entity known as the Evil. She explains that her grandfather built this house using special powers, making it a safe haven where the evil cannot attack. Moma shares a story about her mother, who once stepped outside the house. The entity attacked her, but because she was tied to the rope, she managed to escape unharmed. Although Nolan and Samuel, Moma's two children, have never seen the entity, Moma claims that she has seen it. Her children trust her, and that is why whenever they leave the house to gather food, they always tie themselves with ropes. The next morning, they leave the house to gather food, all tied to ropes. Even their dog is tied with a rope. Moma goes in a different direction and sees a man walking aimlessly. She realizes that the entity has taken control of him and chooses to ignore him, as she has often seen such things around her. On the other side, Nolan spots an egg in the forest. However, he cannot reach it because his rope has reached its limit. The egg is just a few steps away, but to get to it, he needs to untie his rope. As he's about to untie it, his brother Samuel arrives and stops him, warning him not to remove the rope. Now, they move in another direction to search for food. Suddenly, Samuel says, "Mom loves me more than she loves you," which deeply hurts Nolan. Nolan asks, "What did you just say?" Samuel replies, "I didn't say anything." In reality, Samuel hadn't said anything, but Nolan doesn't believe him. Angry, Nolan steps on Samuel's rope, causing him to trip and fall. As a result, Samuel's rope gets untied. Seeing his brother without a rope terrifies Nolan, so he unties his own rope to go down and help him. Nolan blows a whistle, which is their danger signal. Hearing the sound, their mom immediately senses trouble. Meanwhile, a strange woman starts approaching the children. Just as she's about to harm them, Moma arrives, pulls the children up, and ties them back with the rope. The strange woman then comes close to Moma and starts growling in her ear. But the strange thing is that the woman cannot be seen by the two children. Only their mother can see her. Moma takes both children back home, scolding them and saying, "Never untie your rope outside again. When I was little, my rope once ran out, and just a short distance away, I saw a little girl who was badly injured. She was asking me for help, but I realized that she wasn't human. It was the same illusion, the same evil trying to trap me. Even now, I can still hear her voice." Nolan doesn't believe his mom because, until now, he has never seen any entity in the forest or outside the house. He dreams of stepping out and exploring the outside world. Later that night, while the two brothers are in their room, Nolan tells Samuel, "We should go outside without the rope. Today, we didn't have the rope for a while, and nothing happened to us." Samuel replies, "Mom saved us. We should trust her words." Nolan then asks Samuel, "Why did Mom kill Dad, grandfather, and grandmother?" Samuel explains, "Because the entity had taken control of them. This is why Mom had to kill them. Otherwise, they would have killed us. Mom did it to save us." But Nolan's suspicion toward his mom only grows stronger. He starts feeling that what his mom has been telling him isn't entirely true. Meanwhile, we see Moma outside the house, where her husband, who had already died, suddenly appears. The entity has taken the form of her husband to manipulate her. He says to Moma, "Do you remember the wonderful time we spent together?" Moma replies, "I'm not interested in the past. I only want to protect my children." The entity then threatens her, saying, "You won't be able to save them. Very soon, I'll have them under my control." Terrified by these words, Moma rushes back inside the house. The next morning, while Moma is working with her son Nolan, he notices a snake tattoo on her bag. The snake is the same symbol associated with the entity. Nolan asks his mom about the tattoo, which irritates her. She explains, "I got this tattoo before the entity came into this world." At night, Nolan, who has a habit of sleepwalking, is tied with a bell around his ankle by Moma for safety so that he doesn't wander outside the house. One night, Nolan has a dream where he sees someone pulling his rope in the forest, dragging him along with it. In the dream, he is thrown into a well where a snake-like creature appears in front of him. Suddenly, Nolan wakes up to find himself outside the house. There is no rope tied to his body. In front of him, he sees his dog and begins walking toward it. Just then, his mom appears and takes him back inside. She locks him in the basement and says, "You need to pray so that if any bad energy has entered you, it can leave the house." It is revealed that whenever someone accidentally goes outside without a rope, Moma follows this practice. She locks them in the basement and makes them pray to cleanse any potential bad energy. But now Nolan is completely convinced that there is no entity outside. It's all just a creation of his mom's mind. He tells his brother Samuel, "The time has come for us to go outside and get help because we have nothing left to eat." Moma, understanding their thoughts and realizing they are upset due to the lack of food, decides to distract them. She shows them a camera and lets them take their photos. Having never seen such a device before, both boys become very excited and happy. Later, Moma tells them, "We'll have to kill our dog for food." Hearing this, Nolan becomes furious as he loves the dog deeply. He tells his mom, "I won't let you kill my dog at any cost." Ignoring his protests, Moma takes the dog outside to another storeroom, intending to kill it. In anger, Nolan steps outside the house without a rope and says, "Look, there's no creature out here." He then cuts his mom's rope, which makes her extremely scared. The dog runs away, and Moma tries to get back inside the house, but Nolan locks the door from outside. Nolan wants to prove to his mom that there is no evil in the outside world. Moma starts banging on the glass from inside, but Nolan doesn't open the door. Meanwhile, Samuel comes outside. When Samuel finds out that Nolan has locked their mom inside, a fight breaks out between the two brothers. At the same time, inside the storeroom, Moma encounters an evil entity that appears in the form of her mother-in-law. The entity says, "Now I will take control of you, and you will kill your own children." Hearing this, Moma becomes terrified. Before the entity can take control of her, Moma ends her own life to ensure that her children are not harmed. Now Nolan and Samuel enter the storeroom, where they see that their mom has died. Seeing this, Samuel becomes extremely panicked, and his health deteriorates. From the next day, Nolan starts going outside alone to search for food. He takes the ropes of both his mom and brother and ties them together, increasing the length significantly. This allows him to reach the road. However, the road is completely silent, with nothing in sight. Disappointed, he returns home. Suddenly, a man appears and tells Nolan, "I'm a hiker. I saw you in the forest, so I came here. What are you doing out here?" Nolan replies, "My mom has died and my brother is very sick. He's hungry." The hiker says, "I have food." But before he can give Nolan the food, Samuel, from a distance, shoots him with a crossbow, injuring him. The hiker runs away and Nolan chases after him. In the forest, Nolan finds the hiker collapsed on the ground. The hiker has a phone in his hand, and Nolan notices that he has dialed 911. On the other end, a voice can be heard, proving that the world hasn't ended, and there are still humans alive. Nolan takes the hiker's bag, which is full of food, and returns home. However, Samuel still believes that the hiker was an entity, but due to hunger, he eats the food brought by Nolan. Afterwards, Samuel checks the hiker's bag and finds a wallet inside. In the wallet, there's a photo of a little girl. This makes him realize that the hiker was indeed a human, and he has killed an innocent person. Samuel feels deep regret for what he has done. At night, just like how his mom used to sit outside the house, Samuel sits there too. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from the storeroom where his mom had died. He takes the hiker's flashlight and goes to check it out. There, he encounters the same little girl whose photo he saw in the hiker's wallet. The girl asks, "Have you seen my father? He came this way." When she notices her father's flashlight in Samuel's hand, she realizes what has happened. Samuel admits, "It was a mistake. Your father is dead." Hearing this, the girl runs into the forest. Samuel chases after her, but his rope reaches its limit. Determined, he unties the rope and keeps running. Eventually, he reaches a spot where the girl suddenly disappears. At that moment, Samuel sees a strange creature crawling on a tree in front of him. In the next instant, the creature appears at his feet. It turns out that the girl was actually the evil. The entity takes control of Samuel, leaving him powerless. Samuel returns home, completely under the control of the entity. He quietly sits on his bed without saying a word. Nolan enters the room and notices a dark shadow hovering over Samuel's head. Realizing something is wrong, Nolan begins reciting the same chants his mom used to make him say in the basement. Hearing the chants, Samuel becomes furious. He locks Nolan in a room and sets the entire house on fire before walking outside. Trapped inside, Nolan tries to find an escape route, but it's not easy. From outside, Samuel, now fully controlled by the entity, shouts, "This house can't save you now." With no other choice, Nolan goes back into the burning house. There, he sees his mom's figure appear before him. He immediately realizes that it's not her, but the entity that killed his mom. Determined to end it, Nolan grabs the entity and jumps into the basement with it. Holding onto the entity tightly, Nolan continues chanting the sacred words. The entity begins to writhe in pain, its true form revealed. After a fierce struggle, the entity is finally destroyed, putting an end to its terror. Outside, Samuel uses the camera he has and takes a photo of himself. A few hours later, when the entire house has burned down, a rescue team arrives. They were alerted because the hiker had called 911, and it was that call that brought the rescue team to the location. Nolan is rescued, and Samuel, who is also there, is saved as well. As they are being rescued, Nolan says to Samuel, "Mom loved me more than she loved you." Then the camera is shown again, and a photo prints out from it. In the photo, there is a hand resting on Samuel's shoulder, a hand belonging to the same entity that had been appearing to their mom in various forms. It is now revealed that the entity has fully taken over Samuel's mind. Both brothers are brought to the city, where they find that humans are indeed alive, contradicting what their mom had told them, that no one else survived in the world. However, the truth is more complex. The other people in the city have no knowledge of the entity. What do you think? Did the entity truly attack our world, or was it just a figment of Moma's mind that eventually influenced her children as well? Share your thoughts in the comments. We hope you enjoyed this story.